Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tale, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, and shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now, let's get into today's tale. When I got my first apartment, my parents handed me a lease agreement that put the property in their name. When I refused to sign, they sneered, "Then you're on your own." But when they tried to evict me from my own home, the judge's ruling left them. Humiliated, I was 24 when I moved into my first apartment in Portland, Oregon. It was a modest one-bedroom, but it was mine. After years of saving from working double shifts at the diner and taking online classes at night, I was ready to start my life independently. My parents had always been controlling. They offered to help with the lease, saying they wanted to ensure I had a safety net. I was hesitant, but they insisted. They brought over a lease agreement, and I noticed that it listed them as the property owners. "Why are your names on the lease?" I asked. "It's just a formality," my mother said, waving her hand dismissively. "We want to make sure everything is in order." I felt uneasy, but didn't want to start a fight. I told them I'd think about it. The next day, I told them I didn't feel comfortable signing a lease that listed them as the property owners. After all, I was the one paying the rent and utilities, my father sneered. "Then you're on your own." They left, slamming the door behind them. I was shocked. They had always been controlling. But this was a new level. I decided to move forward without their involvement. I signed a lease directly with the landlord, Mr. Victor, who was more than happy to rent to me. A few weeks later, I came home from work to find my parents in my apartment. They had let themselves in using a spare key they had taken from years ago. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. "This is our property." My mother said, "We have every right to be here." I was furious. I called the police, but they said it was a civil matter since my parents claimed to be the property owners. I showed them my lease agreement with Mr. Victor, but they said it was up to the courts to decide. I filed a restraining order against my parents and took them to court for unlawful entry and harassment. They countersued, claiming they were the rightful owners of the property. The courtroom was tense. My parents presented a fake lease agreement claiming I had agreed to let them manage the property. I presented my legitimate lease with Mr. Victor and proof of my rent payments. The judge reviewed the evidence and shook his head. "It's clear that the defendant has no legal claim to the property," he said, referring to my parents. "I hereby rule in favor of the plaintiff." My parents were humiliated. The judge ordered them to stay away from the apartment and fined them for court costs. I changed the locks and installed a security system. It was a painful experience, but it taught me the importance of standing up for myself. My relationship with my parents was never the same, but I finally had the independence I had always craved. About 3 weeks after the court ruling, I came home from work and found a letter taped to my front door. It was written in my mother's handwriting. The words were shaky but deliberate. "You may have one for now, but you'll regret doing this to us. We raised you. We gave you everything." I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. I didn't think much of it at the time. I thought they were just angry and trying to get under my skin. I had no idea what they were planning behind the scenes. That same week, my electricity was suddenly shut off. I called the utility company, and they told me someone had called, claiming to be me, and asked for service to be stopped. Then my internet went out, 2 days later. Same story. Next came the fake maintenance call. A guy showed up saying he was sent to inspect plumbing issues. I hadn't made any requests. He had paperwork forged, but with my name on it. I started to feel paranoid. I was checking the locks 3 times a night, watching my back at work. I even stopped using my real name on delivery apps. It wasn't just me anymore. They were making it personal. I started saving every strange document, email, voicemail, and text. My landlord, Mr. Victor, got involved too. He was furious after finding out someone had tried to access the building's owner portal using his credentials. He confronted me in person, thinking maybe I was behind it. But when I showed him everything, the forged documents, the power shutoffs, the visit from the fake plumber, he realized what was really happening. "I don't know what kind of game your parents are playing," he said, "but this is criminal." A week later, I got a letter from my bank. It said my checking account had been flagged for suspicious activity. Someone tried to open a credit card in my name with my social. That's when it hit me. My parents still had access to my social security number. From when I was a teenager, I never thought to change any of that because, well, who does? Now it was clear they weren't just trying to scare me. They were trying to ruin me. I went back to the police with a full binder of evidence, emails, paperwork, a timeline, a tour of events. The first officer brushed it off. You sure it's not just a family misunderstanding? But the second one, Officer Jenna Lee, took one look at everything and said, no, this is serious. We're opening a case file. That same week, a detective called me. They were launching an investigation. They asked me not to speak to my parents directly and to keep collecting any new evidence. Finally, someone was taking me seriously. It didn't take long for the detective to get what he needed. Turns out my parents had been trying to file paperwork to buy my apartment from under me. They had forged documents that made it look like I was transferring the lease to them. They even had fake signatures, mine included. Worse, they'd been telling people in our extended family that I was mentally unstable, that I had gone off the rails, and that they were stepping in to protect me. So when my aunt called, crying, asking if I needed help or a place to stay, I finally told her everything. That's when things got even uglier. Half the family believed my parents. They raised you. Why would they leave, they said? The other half didn't want to take sides. It's not our business. I felt completely alone. Even people at Rusted started acting weird around me, like I was some kind of liar or manipulator. All I had was the truth. And it was starting to feel like that wasn't enough. But I wasn't going to give up, not this time. 2 weeks into the investigation, I got a call from Detective Caleb Morris. His sounded different, sharper. We received a tip. He said, someone submitted an anonymous report claiming your parents were planning to transfer property ownership using forged documents at a notary's office. I didn't know what to say. I'd already given them everything I had. But this meant someone close to me parents had flipped. Detective Caleb Morris wouldn't give me the source, but whoever it was had provided exact dates and a copy of a draft deed of transfer typed out with my fake signature at the bottom. That tip blew the whole thing wide open. Here's where it got even more insane. While pulling financial records and public filings, the detective found another address under my parents' names in the same neighborhood. Turns out they'd tried to secure a second apartment under my name using my credit and SSN planning to rent it out while sticking me with the debt. The scheme was months in the making. They were trying to set me up so that when my lease ended, I'd be forced out by a ruined credit score and collection notices. Then they'd move in, play the victim, and tell everyone they had to step in to help me get back on my feet. This wasn't about family. This was about control, about money, and maybe about revenge. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my landlord, Mr. Victor, called me and said we needed to talk. Urgently, he had gone through some old emails and realized something. 6 months before I signed my lease, he had been approached by a woman claiming Toby acting on my behalf. She said I was young, confused, and struggling with anxiety, and that any paperwork should go through her as the guardian. That woman, my mother, she tried to make a legal argument to establish guardianship over me quietly behind my back, all while I was busting my ass, saving up and applying for places. Victor had turned her down. Thank God, but he hadn't. God, but realized it was anything more than a pushy parent at the time. Now he was horrified. A week later, my boss pulled me into his office. We got a weird phone call, he said, shutting the door. Someone claiming to be your relative called HR and said you were stealing from the company and needed intervention. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. My job was the one thing I had left that was stable, and now they were coming for that too. I showed my boss the police case file number. I explained everything. He nodded, but I could tell he was shaken. They made it sound real, he said quietly. That hit me harder than I expected, because now I realized how close I was to losing everything. Remember that anonymous tip? Well, the person sent another one. This time it was a recording, scratchy, muffled, probably made from a phone in a coat pocket, but the voices were clear. My father, if she won't give it up, will make her one way or another. You get the paperwork, I'll deal with her. My mother, she's young, she'll fold, we just need to push a little harder. Played it twice, 3 times. My hands were shaking. It wasn't just proof of planning. It was intent. Detective Caleb Morris called the next morning. I think your case is part of something larger. He said, we're looking into other reports. Apparently, there were 2 other young adults in nearby towns who had similar stories: controlling parents, fake leases, identity theft. Caleb Morris wasn't ready to say it was connected, but the timing and tactics were almost identical. That's when I realized maybe this wasn't just about me anymore. Maybe my parents had done this before, or worse, maybe they were part of something that goes way beyond our family. After months off tension, I couldn't take it anymore. The forged documents, the job sabotage, the family betrayal, it all pushed me to the edge. One night, I sat alone in my apartment staring at my phone. I had dozens of recordings, screenshots, emails, and that anonymous voice memo. I didn't care about pride anymore. I didn't care about saving face. I sent everything to every relative I had. A group email titled, "The Truth You've All Ignored." It laid it out piece by piece: the lease, the court case, the forgery, the attempt to ruin my credit, the call to my boss. I even attached the full police report and the audio of my parents planning to make me fold. I hit send and waited. The next day, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Aunt Lillian was the first to call. She sobbed through the whole thing. She said she was sorry for doubting me, sorry for believing. My mother, sorry for not standing up when she should have. Then came my cousin Eli. Angry, furious, he told me my parents had tried something similar with his younger brother, but never followed through. Then silence from the rest. 3 days later, I got a text from my older brother Logan. Just one sentence: "They're out of control. Do what you have to do." That was all I needed. Detective Caleb Morris called and confirmed it. They were going forward with criminal charges against my parents. Forgery, identity theft, attempted fraud, harassment. The Dawa's personally involved now. That recording, it sealed everything. I showed up at the courthouse to give a statement. My hands were sweating the entire time, but I didn't back down. I looked the DA straight in the eyes and told him they tried to destroy me just so they could own me. A week later, the cops knocked on their door. They were arrested in front of their own house, handcuffed, mugshot press release. It made the local paper couple arrested for forgery and identity theft against own child. My mother cried in court. My father stared at me like he didn't even know who I was. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. The judge denied bail. Said the level of deception and danger to others was deeply disturbing. I felt no pity. The trial took 3 days. I testified. So did my landlord. So did my boss. Even Aunt Lillian. The jury found them guilty on all counts. They were sentenced to 5 years each in state prison. No parole for the first 3. They were taken away in silence. Not a single person from the family came to see them off. Here's the part that still haunts me. I saw the signs early. The control, the manipulation, the little ways. They undermined my confidence growing up. I let it slide too long. I ignored it because they were family. I didn't speak up because I didn't want to seem ungrateful. I gave them chance after chance to be decent. And when I finally stood up for myself, it was almost too late. So yeah, I made a mistake too. I trusted them longer than I should have. It's been 2 years. Since the trial, I've moved out of that apartment. I now own Asmal House in Bend, Oregon. Quiet, safe mine. The same cousin they tried to trick, he helped me renovate it. We built a garden out back. Nothing fancy, just some tomatoes, peppers, and lavender, but it's peaceful. I still get nightmares. Sometimes, but I also get peace knowing I didn't let them win. Sometimes the people who raise you can be the very ones who try to bury you. But I dug myself out, I stood tall, and I made damn sure they'd never do it to anyone else again.